was thinking of putting my Halloween t-shirt on for this video, but then I realised I haven't actually got any. So I hope Wicked will do the job for you guys. The back's better. Now, if you've clicked on this video, I assume that you've seen the Conjuring films, and that's why you're interested in what I've got to speak about today. I'm a huge fan of the Conjuring films. I haven't seen the newest one yet, but I plan on watching it soon. I mean, it's pretty obvious with films that they're dramatised for the audience's entertainment, like films that are based on real life. I mean, it's common sense that they're gonna whack the drama of it all up just so that we enjoy it, because otherwise it could be pretty boring. But I didn't realise they'd do it this much. I actually wasn't planning on making a video about this. I mean, I literally haven't made a YouTube video in years, but I researched like literally on my own accord, because I remember reading something ages ago and it said that Ed and Lorraine had gone to a place and they'd literally left and made the family's life worse. So I wanted to try and dig and find out some stuff about that. Couldn't actually find that exact story, so I don't know what they were yapping on about. I'm gonna tell you today what I have found and let you know the real story of Ed and Lorraine Warren. Now, before I start, I actually want to preface and say that I am a huge believer in ghosts. I live in a Victorian house. Trust me, there's stuff that's happened in this house. I'm literally looking at my phone case right now. There's ghosts on it. Should I turn this around and show you? You see? So yeah, I just wanted to say I'm not coming into this on like a skeptic's view. I am very open-minded. Just what I've read, it's made me a bit skeptical about the whole thing. So when Lorraine was a teenager, she was already convinced that she had psychic capabilities. At the age of 9 years old, she started seeing auras around people and starting to figure out that she might be psychic. She also could predict the future. Okay, that's so Raven moment. Now with Ed, who's the most fishy of them all to me, he didn't have any psychic capabilities, nothing like that, but when he was growing up he had haunted things happening to him in his house. He saw a light that turned into like an apparition of his family's landlord. He just also witnessed like small things like doors opening on their own, blah blah blah. Can I just say, I've had weirder things happen like that to me and I haven't turned into a demonologist claiming that I can help get rid of ghosts in people's houses. That's what I'm saying. So they both grew up in Connecticut, and the way they met is they actually crossed paths whilst going to a movie theatre. Very old-fashioned, very romantic, love that for them. And eventually, I suppose they were teenagers and they got together that way. So it seems like Ed actually always had an interest in the paranormal, but he went the like suburban route. He went into a traditional career path and ended up joining the Navy at the age of 17. Although it ended up going a little bit wrong. Whilst he was serving abroad for World War II, his ship actually sank and he ended up getting 30-day survivor's leave. Not that long. I mean, if you're a little bit traumatised, don't think a month is enough, but... So during a short break in 1945, Ed and Lorraine actually got married. I mean, he was busy during them 30 days, trust me. And later on they ended up having Judy, their daughter, in 1951. After his service actually ended, he went down a completely different route. Hashtag hipster Ed. He ended up going and enrolling in art school and pursuing a career in art. So this is how we actually start getting them into the route with ghosts, because he would be painting haunted houses. So what they'd do is they'd read through newspapers, find out where there's alleged hauntings in houses. He'd go to these houses, paint their house and knock on the door. Lorraine would be the one to do this because, I don't know, I suppose she was better at talking to these people. Give them the painting. He's painted your house and it looks really fucking creepy. So once they actually got into the house, they'd be looking around. I suppose they helped the people. They'd be recommending seances and other services to try and help them with whatever's going on. They actually ended up doing this for 5 years, and obviously going around towns and all these different places, their reputation grew. So in 1952, after doing this for a while, they actually decided they wanted to like legitimize themselves a little bit more, because I suppose if you are just two people going around a town, people could think it's bullshit. Like, I mean, people could think you're unsafe, to be fair, letting people come into your house and investigate the ghost, like especially if they're just knocking on the door. I'd be a bit skeptical. I'd be like, are these people trying to rob me? So in 1952, they actually established the NESPR, the New England Society for Psychic Research, which actually still operates today. Like, spoiler alert, the two of them are dead, but it's still going. And yeah, I just suppose this helped legitimize them, make them seem a bit more official. They've got their own like business up and running now. So now we've got their early years and how their career actually established out the way, I want to start getting into the juicy bit, which is the cases. I am going to talk about a couple, like touching on the more well-known cases that have been in the Conjuring movies, but I wanted to touch more on things that is lesser known that you probably don't know about. Just to say, how did they make their money? Well, they actually never charged any of their customers and people's houses that they're going in. They never charged these people for helping them, which is good. Green flag, I like that. But they would essentially say to them, you know, we're going to sell this off, we're going to write books about this, we're going to go to the press about this, we're going to do talks about this. That is essentially how they made their money, and I suppose they racked up quite a decent amount from doing all of this, especially the books. Another thing is, I know they actually taught, I suppose this might have been more Ed, because Lorraine was more the psychic person, but Ed did actually teach people how to be a demonologist. Which does just make me think, like, how do you know you're just going into people's houses? Like, I don't really know, like, what makes someone with, like, Lorraine, she's got, like, that woman had, like, superpowers. She's psychic, like, I understand, she could see things. Ed, he's just a man. Like, what makes these people capable to help with ghosts? I don't know. So in 1992, the author Ray Garton actually collaborated with Ed and Lorraine Warren to publish a book. This was called In a Dark Place, the Story of a True Haunting, and it essentially told readers about the story of the Snedeka family. I'm so sorry if I like ribbed that name, Snedeka. So in this book it tells the story about this family, and they moved to Connecticut in 1986. They were actually occupying a funeral home. Are you surprised? You move into a funeral home, are you going to be shocked that it's haunted? So they move into a funeral home. They relocated because they needed to be closer to medical care for their son because he had cancer. So not long after moving there, their son actually started telling them that the devil wanted him to do bad things, and the family just blamed this on his illness and like outbursts on just his illness, and thinking, oh, it's just making his personality change a little bit. So not long after, they actually said really wild shit had started to happen essentially, and they said during like the dead of the night there'd be unexplained groping. So not long after that, they actually realised that the last owners of this funeral home were improperly handling the corpses, whatever that means. Like, what were they doing to them? I don't want to know. And from this, they actually assumed that there were angry spirits in their home. I would say so, yes. From this, they obviously wanted the spirits to leave, so they called on the Warrens. The Warrens came along, and they actually ended up bringing their nephew, John Zaffis, and they called for an exorcism. Although, bear in mind, they actually called on a priest to do this. I suppose they weren't trained to do that themselves. I don't know. I thought they did exorcisms from the films. Apparently not. They were calling on a priest to do that for them. So in September 1986, the priest performed this exorcism, and it was successful. The spirits were gone, and by the end of the year, the family were out of that home. So to be fair, it could have still been going on, but they fucked off anyway. Good on them. That's exactly what I would have done. So obviously the Warrens and John Zaffis, their nephew, had always maintained that this story is true, but none of them had been able to produce any evidence. John Zaffis, there's no evidence. Now here's where it gets a bit fishy. The actual author of the book, because remember Ed and Lorraine were co-authors, this man is like essentially their ghostwriter. So Ray Garton actually said this whole book was literally just made to be cashed in on, you know, getting money from the book, and they also wanted a possible movie from it. He actually said the family involved were really heavily involved in alcohol and drugs, and they literally could not keep their story straight. He said, and I quote, "It's hard writing a non-fiction book." Non-fiction. It's hard writing a non-fiction book when all the people involved are telling you different stories. So obviously, as I said before, sorry I've got an itchy shoulder. This author as well never saw any evidence relating to this actual case, and when he brought this up to Ed, he encouraged him to fill in any holes where he sees fit. This is another direct quote from Ray Garton. He said, and I quote, "When I went to Ed, he said, use what you can and make the rest up. You write scary books, right? That's why we hired you. So just use what you can, make the rest up and make it scary." According to Garton's research, it was actually the boy that was ill that unraveled this whole case. So it actually came out that he had schizophrenia as well as other health issues. During a phone call from him to Garton, he actually said that all of this went away. The demonic thoughts and the hallucinations. He said once he had schizophrenia medication, all of that went away. Which is odd, because this would mean none of the other family was experiencing it. So wouldn't they, like, I don't know, they were weird with mental health back then, I suppose. But why would you think your whole house is haunted when it's just happening to your son? I don't know. So unfortunately, and trigger warning for sexual assault here, it actually came out, and the boy in his family, the Snedeka family's son that was ill, he actually said that it was him that was groping his nieces, because that's what he said, he was groping his nieces in the middle of the night, and he actually confesses to the police. So yeah, that whole case that was so supposed to be haunted was actually this demon child in the house. Yes, he was mentally ill, but also he was busy sexually assaulting his nieces. So apparently with this next case that I'm doing, it said it might be the next case for the most recent last Conjuring film, The Last Rites. I have no clue. I haven't watched it. So, I mean, if you've seen it, you'll be able to know. This is essentially the true story of that. So in 1974, Jack and Janet Smurf, what a brilliant last name, moved into Pennsylvania. The events that essentially followed all of this actually got turned into a book. Surprise, surprise, that's how they made their money. It was actually written once again by a ghostwriter, Robert Curran, and it was called The Haunting, One Family's Nightmare, and the Smurf family actually co-authored this book as well with Ed and Lorraine Warren. And I'd just like to preface this, again, sexual assault warning. I don't know why that's a running theme with this. I'm so sorry, I just realised at the beginning I said Smurf family. Did I say Smurf? It's Smell. Sorry. So the Smell family actually consisted of Jack and Janet Smell, Jack's parents and their daughters. So they actually established themselves in an old duplex which they renovated and done up. It all started rather innocently because tools started going missing, just a few little bits here and there, until they actually started smelling strange smells and things catching on fire. So not before long, the family actually started to hear strange voices, and unfortunately Jack and Janet Smell ended up getting assaulted by these ghosts. Not just assaulted, but sexually assaulted. And even when no one was home, the neighbours would say they'd hear screaming coming from the house, which is just lovely. Another thing, I'm like, I almost laughed at this, and I don't know why, because hurting animals is just the worst thing ever. I feel like Shane in was it when they did BuzzFeed himself, the woman was talking about like the dog being flung and he started laughing. Was it something like that? I feel like that. I did almost laugh at this, but they did actually say their dog got a spirit through their dog into the wall. I'm sorry, that's not funny. Who do you think came along? Ed and Lorraine Warren. Lorraine actually said that the house held 4 spirits: an old resident, an elderly lady, a younger girl who was supposed to be violent, and also a malevolent entity that was supposed to be manipulating the others. Ed Warren actually told the press later that the spirits in his house told him to get out. It then goes on to say that the Smell's last line of defence was the Catholic Church. This means to me that Ed and Lorraine actually did come to the house, but they did fuck all. Several priests ended up actually coming to the home, and each time they said there was no weird activity going on. However, I do admit, you know, with a haunted house, you gotta be there at the right time. I feel like you have to stay there for a good amount of time to actually experience something weird going on. You can't just stay there for like 10 minutes and expect something to be like, I don't know, fucking shoved into a wall. Actually, I'm so sorry, I've just read on. It says that a priest actually stayed 2 days in the house, and he said that nothing unusual happened. I take it back. Sorry. So in 1983, Jack Smell actually ended up having brain surgery, which was to help fix his memory loss due to a case of meningitis. And people do say that this could have been the reason that they thought they were being haunted. If I'm honest, I don't know about this one because I can't see, unless he had something neurologically wrong with him, I don't see how that would make you think you're being haunted. Although they do say, you know, back then people would rather say they're being haunted by fucking demons than say they're mentally ill. So I don't know. So this family actually did end up claiming like exhaustion from media attention, but it is said that they quickly co-authored that book with Ed and Lorraine Warren. Reviewers actually criticised the book for a one-sided story. There was essentially no evidence to it, and people think that they were more interested in fame than seeking solutions. I don't know about this, because I can't lie. If I was getting haunted and these people came along to me and was like, do you want to make a decent amount of money going and writing a book about this? You don't even have to write anything. This man over here is going to do it for you. You just get to claim the money. I'll be like, fuck yeah. Like, I've been through this, you know, give me the money. But yeah, it just seems to be like an ongoing thing. There's a lack of evidence with these cases. Although, what evidence can there be? I mean, it was back then. Did they really use video cameras? They could have definitely used a camera. But it's hard to catch evidence like that. Like now we can just whack out our phones and film it. It weren't so easy back then, so I don't know. There was a woman called Deborah Owens who moved into their house straight after them, and she said that there was no paranormal activity whatsoever. So I don't know. Do you think these people were in for a cash grab and lying? Or do you think they actually were being haunted? I'm not sure. Now moving on to a quick touch on the more popular cases. Here is the case of Annabelle. I'm not going to tell this story in depth because I feel like the majority of people, especially the ones that are going to be watching this, are going to know what this story is. But to briefly touch on it, this was actually the Warrens' first major case back in 1970, and it was about a possessed doll. Honestly, I find this hard to believe, if I'm being honest, especially how like some of the batshit crazy things they say happen. I don't know. So it was a Raggedy Ann doll. How you see this doll in the movie is completely different to how it was in real life. I'll show a picture of what it actually looks like here. I feel like the majority of people know what it actually looks like. It looks quite nice. This doll was actually gifted to a young nurse called Donna by her mum. Shortly after she actually got given this doll, her and her roommate Angie ended up realising that the doll keeps being moved, and eventually there was notes being left around the house saying things like, help me. Here is where my skepticism comes in about notes being left. I don't know if I believe that. It's like a bit far-fetched for me. And this is coming from like, I am a believer in ghosts. I've had such weird shit happen to me, but like never like it's a note. It's a ghost, a ghost inside a doll writing a note saying yeah. And Andrew's boyfriend allegedly woke up one night to the doll strangling him, which I'm so sorry, that is such a ridiculous like vision in my head. So seeking help, for once these bloody girls didn't actually go to Ed and Lorraine Warren at first. They actually contacted a medium who told them that the doll was possessed by a benevolent 7-year-old child called Annabelle Higgins. And when Ed and Lorraine Warren were actually called up to investigate, they disagreed that the doll was benevolent. They actually determined that the best course of action was to bless the entire like property and to basically yank the doll off them. Perhaps they were thinking, fuck yeah, we'll put this really crazy thing in our museum and make a ton of money off of it. We'll let people in here. Although did they let I know it was open to visitors actually, their museum. I don't know if that was after they died. Maybe I'm being mean for no reason. So obviously once again people have found holes in this story, and they disagree that there's any actual evidence that this actually happened. Which is fair enough, but also like what evidence do you want? However, and bear in mind this case happened all the way back in 1970, people actually realised that this case bears an uncanny resemblance to the 1963 Twilight Zone episode, which was labelled Living Doll. And guess what the doll was called? Annabelle. Although yet another thing that actually makes this case more fishy is that Ed kept getting mixed up on information about it. In a 1980s tour that Ed did of their occult museum, he actually said that the medium that Donna and Angie saw said that a girl had died in a motorcycle accident outside their house. He also stated that Annabelle was 6 and not 7, and said that the doll was given to Donna as a Christmas present, not a birthday present, as the demonologist book states. So he seems to be getting information mixed up. I don't know, is this just him, like a slightly older man, forgetting things? Or is it because he's made it all up? And literally briefing on the Enfield Haunting, which is my favourite Conjuring film. I didn't like the third one, I'm sorry. The second one, 8. Crazy. The Enfield Haunting, considering how mental that movie was and like how much Ed and Lorraine were involved, all the articles, like essentially the majority of them, never mention Ed and Lorraine. And you know why? Obviously their involvement was highly dramatised for the movie, we know that. They're gonna bump it up, but I didn't think they'd bump it up this much. So Guy Lyon Playfair, he was one of the investigators for this case. He literally said Ed and Lorraine turned up uninvited. No one had called them. I suppose, why would they call them? You know, they're American, they're going to get British people in to try and help. Yeah, they turned up unannounced. At first they were denied entry, and when they first actually, you know, when they finally got in, they spent like a day there and then left. And that's all they did. So here are some actual personal accounts with Ed and Lorraine that I've found on Reddit. I know Reddit is obviously not the most reliable source of material, I realise that, but what people are saying, it's not far-fetched. Like, I have no reason to not believe them. I mean, you can take this with a grain of salt, but I just wanted to include some actual like personal accounts with them. This person was actually saying that during uni, her mum stayed in a house, obviously, that was being rented out to students, and she knew that this house was old because there was a button that you could press to like ring up servers to you know, come up to you, and which is funny enough because I actually had one of them down in my cellar. So during her time there, she had some weird things going on. Her cat was growling at nothing, sometimes the air would feel like thick and cold, and sometimes she'd be awakened by like whispering in the night. This woman actually ended up talking to her friend, and the friend was like, I'm gonna be giving this tour to these ghost investigators, literally like taking them around the uni and taking them around the town. And then the mum was like, whoa, that's weird, like I've been having these weird happenings going on in my house. Obviously this friend begged her to let her bring these ghost investigators around to the house, and she ended up agreeing, and I'm sure you can guess who these ghost investigators were. Ryan and Shane from Ghost Files. No, I'm joking. Ed and Lorraine. So to cut things short, Ed and Lorraine did end up coming to this house. She invited them in, they came upstairs to her bedroom. The woman was like, can you feel how thick and cold the air was? And they were like, yes, the air is thick and cold. You're putting words in their mouth, babes. Like, let them say it for themselves. But then Lorraine actually went over to this woman's wardrobe and she was like, can you hear voices in here? And the woman like broke down in floods of tears because she was like, yes, I can hear it every night. It keeps me up. Here's where Lorraine says something really comforting. She actually says, oh, it could be a doorway to hell. That's fine, like where I keep my clothes, like it's just a doorway to hell. That's completely fine and normal, and that's not going to freak me out anymore at all. She actually said it's either like a portal for people who have passed on or a doorway to hell. But so after this they ended up leaving, and before they blessed the house due to the mum's request, I'm sure you can believe this didn't work out. And before the mum moved out of the house, strange things were still going on, and it followed them to different houses even as this woman grew up and she had kids, which was the one that was writing this Reddit post. Yeah, strange things were happening. Strange things were happening to the kids. Their blessing didn't work, essentially. Eventually it only went away when they decided to get a priest round to bless the house. So once again, Ed and Lorraine, sorry you did fuck all. This next one, they mention a house. I don't know what house they're mentioning because they didn't actually specify. Although reading through the rest of the post, I think they were like mentioning to the newest Conjuring because everyone else was talking about that. Anyway, so they said their niece is 61 and she said she's friends with one of the girls that lived in that house. She said this girl actually ended up growing up and making a whole book about it. Women that lived in this house said that Ed and Lorraine Warren were literally just about money. They just wanted book deals and ended up, you know, movie deals, and basically they said Lorraine was actually psychic, which I do believe. Don't have any reason to believe that she wasn't psychic. They said she actually was, But, you know, when she's presented with real phenomena and things that are going on, she had no idea how to actually deal with it, which, sorry, I believe. She's literally just told someone that their wardrobe is a portal to hell and then fucked off and didn't help them at all. So they said they actually think she thought she was helping, but kind of at a loss at what to do about it. And in this house, she did a seance, but it went sideways. Obviously didn't help them at all. The book that she wrote is actually called House of Darkness, House of Light. So if you want to go read that, you can. Obviously, it'll give you more in depth about everything. Now, I'm sorry, and this is pretty obvious, but the movie characters are nothing like the real life people. And I'm once again going to give you a trigger warning of sexual assault and grooming. So someone actually mentioned that there was an episode aired about the Snedeka family, and Ed in this episode is literally nothing like how he's portrayed in the film. So they said he's belligerent, he challenges one of the skeptics in the show to a fight and argues with members of the audience. When Lorraine actually did try to speak, Ed literally just refused to let her speak. He literally went like this into her face, was literally shouting over her, and just continued to argue with like the other man that he was arguing with. Let her get a word in edgeways. So here's when we get into a bit of the serious bit to do with Ed. In 2014, Judith Penny actually accused Ed of having a decades-long relationship with her, which started when she was 15 years old, and he was busy being a bus driver. Obviously, she was still in school. He was a bus driver. He was in his mid-30s. She said she actually lived with the Warrens for 40 years. This led to her arrest in 1963 because guess what? It was illegal for a married man to cohabit with an unmarried woman. It's almost like he should have been arrested because he was grooming a teenager. These policemen were actually trying to get her to admit to having an affair with him, but she downright refused, and she ended up actually getting sent to a youth delinquent centre for a month. This woman, Judith Penny, actually said that Lorraine knew everything about the affair. Ed called this poor woman the love of his life. Whilst he was still married to Lorraine, mind you, they were all literally fucking living together. So in public, this woman was actually seen as the Warrens' niece, or just like a girl they've taken in. Oh, so nice. I'm so glad they did that. Oh, so kind of them. So in 1978, Judith actually ended up getting pregnant, and Lorraine basically gave her an ultimatum. She said, you either tell people that you've been raped by a man that you don't know, or you're going to get an abortion. They essentially told her that their reputation would suffer if she doesn't get an abortion, and people knew she was pregnant. So the woman was essentially forced into getting an abortion. So another thing from Judith, she said that Ed is actually physically and emotionally abusive towards Lorraine, and at one point he actually knocked her unconscious. And back onto the topic of ghosts, she actually even included that sometimes she would help them stage photos of the paranormal. She said she recalled one moment when she was wrapped in white bed sheets and, you know, Ed was taking photos of her. She was staging herself as a ghost. Don't know how good that would have looked, if I'm being completely honest. Maybe she was running really fast. To further prove her point, so Ed actually died, I believe, in 2006. To further prove her point, when these Conjuring films were being made, Lorraine had a contract basically telling the directors, writers of Conjuring that this is what you can't be writing about. And I'll read it off from here. She said, written into a contract for the Conjuring film series, she and Ed could not be portrayed engaging in extramarital affairs or engaging in crimes like sex with a minor. That's so strange. Like, why would she be doing that if nothing's ever happened? I don't think they were good people. I think Lorraine was complicit in what Ed was doing. Ed was obviously a piece of shit. And going on to the ghost thing, I think Lorraine, she thought she could help. She had psychic powers. I suppose she could see some things, recognise some paranormal things going on, but she didn't know what to do with it. Ed, I feel like he was probably just a phony. He was just going into houses, having a little look around, recommending they do, I don't know, some sort of seance or thinking they're helping them, but in reality it doesn't actually help. The only thing that ended up getting the majority of these things out of the house is getting a priest round to bless it. I think they were more focused on doing the bare minimum and getting money from books. It's a shame he couldn't have been prosecuted for what he's done. Getting with a 15-year-old is disgusting. Talking about bad people actually that have obtained this occult museum, guess who the owner is? Matt Rife. So, you know, maybe there's like a continuation of just bad men that are owning that. I don't know. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know down below in the comments what your thoughts are on Ed and Lorraine Warren. I mean, obviously they were bad people, but putting that aside, do you think they were real or were they frauds? Okay, thank you so much. See you next time.